giving you a voice.
Making it loud our own way.
Welcome to the fun.
Want to be our boss? Visit our Patreon to pledge your support at patreon.com/funfrc.
And for the month of September, all of our Patreons have a chance to win a Cooler Master MS-120 keyboard and mouse set.
I think, though, we're going to move on to some questions from the chat during the show. Now, these kind of float amongst different topics, so if we do a little bit of rewind and catch up, that's what we're going to be here. So the first question in chat is from Richard3620, and it's specifically for you, Adam. What about that white paper on field relative positioning through nonlinear state estimation?
How dare you? That is not a meme. That is a serious topic and well past my expertise. I won't ever be able to deliver that.
Can someone explain this joke to me? Because I see it on Chief, but I just don't know what it is.
So it's not a joke, but if it was a joke, if I did it like this. I think it was 299 initially put a recruiting mentor thread up, and they listed that in there. It's like one of the things they did. They're like, we have routers, we have machines, by the way, we do this. And, I know some people on that team, and it was like, I'm fairly confident you don't do that. So luckily the timing was that there were several other recruitment threads at the same time. So I just started asking the other team if they did that. Gotcha. One of those teams, I think, deleted their thread because I asked it and then posted it again. So I had to ask it again, of course. And luckily the second one lasted. And I had a pretty good spree where, I would get a phone notification and it was someone sending me a thread. And it's like, well, I guess I got to ask them if they do this. But then Bailey I don't even know what team he's on now, just ruined it for everyone and stole my thunder. So the meme is dead, unfortunately, because now random people are doing it. Like, it was
Would you say that you're signing off from that meme?
I am signing off from that meme. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, basically you're telling us that you did memes about field relative positioning through nonlinear state estimation before they were cool.
I did. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Gotcha. Adam, going back to the great stuff, a logistics question. If a team brought a great subsystem to a competition to add to their robot, would it go into their 30-pound withholding allowance?
So if you brought it in raw, no, but that would be tough to do because, it doesn't work until you've done quite a bit of work and, added quite a bit of components that were not in the kit. To keep the price low, the kit is just what you need. It doesn't have the off-the-shelf X stuff and all that. That's purchased separately because you might already have that. So yeah, we saw some fear of that on Chief, but it's like, I don't know how big of a concern that is, because the amount of work you'd have to do once you got into the event to make that work and not pay the weight hit is just huge. The team that could pull that off is the team that probably already had the resources to make whatever happen anyway.
But I mean, like, if I was doing it, if I was on like a medium resource team using the great stuff, well, I would say a medium capabilities team, but let's say I have a little bit of money, I would buy two, put one on my practice spot, figure out how it's going to be integrated, and then, jot down how it's going to go together, and then assemble a competition to save myself. Because, like, when you're doing a major upgraded competition, every pound counts. So if I can bring something in that I can easily assemble, like, that's the way I would do it. But that's just neither here nor there.
Sure, yeah, and that's a possibility. And I don't know if this is a fantasy of mine or a nightmare of mine, but I'm kind of waiting for the next 2015 can grabbers, because if there was a game element that would cause this concept to blow up and cause the most controversy as possible, it would be selling can grabbers that are as fast as anyone's for $3.99. And I think you'd sell a lot of them, and I think you would definitely force first to clarify where they stand on the issue.
Yeah, yes, you would definitely sell a lot of those.
I mean,
sure.
If that had happened in 2015, I think that would have. I mean, I wouldn't say it would ruin the game, but I mean,
I would have loved it. I would have loved it. It would have been perfect for us.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Pick whoever, doesn't matter. Everyone's got one. Just slap it on.
So our next question is going back to our drivetrain discussion. So a question for you guys: if you had both drivetrains in front of you, 775 Pro or like 775 and 3 Mini Sim, in which situations would you use one over the other for reasons other than weight? And it's rapid fire example.
for the most part, like I like simplicity. I like things that I don't have to worry about. So I'm almost always going to want to take the 3 mini sim drive. The only if weight's not an issue, the only reason I think I would say for the 775 Pro is if I'm trying to package something really small. If I'm trying to build a small robot like 4334 in 2012, or do something cute like that. And I love the idea of small robots. I think more teams should try them. That would be a reason because it packages really nicely. But then again, if you're going that small, you probably don't need to put that many motors in.
Yeah, Karthik really stole the one example I could think of. I think, if you're one of those robots that's 30, 60 pounds under, a lot of the risks go away. The risks just become, are you generally sloppy? Are you going to have motors plugged in, that sort of thing? So if you're confident you can get past that, I think it's fine to run them. But I'd agree with them. Most years, we would just take the more risk averse route and take the more robust setup.
All right, our next question is, this is from Anubis Abyss Ruler. Any tips for a team that is probably building their first ever practice bot this season?
Ooh, I'd say that's the best year to do a kit apart drive. Because now you're guaranteed to have 2 drives that are the same, like definitely the same. And it gives you a much better starting point than if it's your first year doing 2 robots and going, it's tough making things the same. There's no way around that. And you have to make way more stuff now, obviously. And, I think when teams first start in practice spots, they do a lot of, well, I'll make one and then the other. And that might be easier to conceive of and start with. But, these teams that you see like 2D4, us, Citrus Circuits, we do 2 practice robots now on top of the comp robot. And we do that because we make them all at the same time. And there's just no way to do them in order. It's much less efficient. So yeah, doing a practice spot, do the kit apart drive, make things as easy as possible. And potentially, if the game allows it, use your withholding allowance for your entire mechanism. Especially if it's shooting based or that sort of thing, where there's some magic zip tying of your foam and, specific adjustment of certain things. If you can take that whole head off and just put it on the comp bot and bring it home every time, that can do a lot for you.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring up your point about kind of how they come together. It really depends on your team's workflow, but we've found a lot more success when things are being developed for both robots at the same time than building one and then building one to match. It really depends, though. Like, I think there's a situation in which that is okay, which is that you really just want a robot to practice with once the other robot is bagged. It's not my favorite way of doing it. We've definitely felt better about our practice robot progress when they both sort of lurch along at the same pace, and like programming has a robot and mechanical / the drive team has one robot to work with. But that's how I'd recommend it. And it seems like Adam is too. We're kind of on the same page here, but make sure that they're as close together as possible, including using that withholding, because if they're not the same, or close to the same, there's not really a point. You're not learning a lot from it. Karthik, anything on practice robots?
I mean, nah, you guys kind of covered it all.
That's fine.
There's nothing else really to say there. We got a question from Make It Hackin, which says, is it a good learning lesson to purchase a COTS kit and teach the team how and why it works? Adam, what are your thoughts?
I think absolutely. No, really, in all seriousness, the line of where COTS is in first has always been funny to me, because like no one is surprised that everyone uses bolts or wheels or that sort of thing. So like there's some point where you're like, that is a given solution. Why would I make my own if it's not going to be significantly better than that?
You say that, Adam.
We make our own rivets. I don't know what you're talking about.
But you say that. But like I remember like massive fights about teams being like, oh, we make our own wheels because this is the right way to do it.
I'm so glad that's over.
I used to be on Team 188. It was like, we make our wheels out of wood.
Plywood wheels. I remember those.
Yeah. And then there was the big debate of, oh, let's paint them silver so teams think we're using metal so they don't discriminate against us for using wood wheels. Like that was actually
that would trick anyone.
It did. People are so dumb. They're like, yo, those are sweet aluminum wheels. How'd you make those? Like, oh, I don't know. People are so stupid. But yeah, I sorry, Adam, I just cut you off there with that.
No worries. But yeah, there's definitely value in going, this is what I can get for $200 and it's solved. Therefore, our own solution, when we factor in all of the work we're then not allocating to other things, needs to be better than that, or needs to kind of be in line with the vision of our team. So like if some teams want to agree that their number one goal isn't to be competitive, they want to do cool stuff or that sort of thing, then that's fine. If you make a decision that might be less competitive but more in that area, but as long as everyone on the team is on board with that.
Yeah, I really like the idea of sort of reverse engineering from a COTS kit, something like the elevator. Is like, if you've never built one before, like look at examples, and it's so cool to be able to see something in person that you can then piece together and see how it works. I'm going to use a very different example for intakes that's going to make Karthik laugh. But after our 2015 run to Einstein together, one of our students from 1923, the driver, ended up buying the Symbot arms at the IRI auction. And this year, when both FTC and FRC's game pieces were like square-ish, rigid-ish objects, right? FTC was foam, but it was pretty hard. The mom of that driver texted us and said, "Do you want the arms to take a look at?" And we literally sat there with these two big red arms on the table, and we're like, "How did they do this?" And like, obviously, it's different than COTS kit, but I think there's such a value in FRC to looking at something that does work and figuring out how to make it work and make it work on your own. I think that's a really great way to think about advancing.
I just thought of something during the show, but like if I had a rookie team that was starting in January, I would absolutely buy the great intake kit and then say to the kids, it's like, okay, let's figure out the best configuration and just like play around to go through that prototyping process. And by doing that, also, I'm going to stock up on things that I'm going to use later on, like motors and versaplanetaries and that sort of stuff. So it's like a natural way for them to get acquainted with things that they're definitely going to be using in January in a non-boring way. Like they actually have a goal to like, let's make the best intake. And we actually don't know what the solution is. Sure, you could like look and see what 1323 came up with for their like geometry or whatever, but like you still have to experiment and figure stuff out. So I think that would be a super great learning process. Heck, if I was teaching FRC in a classroom, I would go through the same sort of thing. Like it would be cool to have a competition where you buy like 6 of these and you put kids in groups of 4 and you say, who can come up with the best intake with this? I don't know. Like I'm just.
You'll probably want some spares too, Karthik, but 6 is a good starting number.
No problem. Send the commission over here.
I
agree. You like make a pop-up that just like there.
It's always surprising to me the aversion to copying, because it's pretty much impossible to teach kids classical design from first principles, because they're like, well, what's the equation? How do I choose how thick the aluminum is? And you're like, well, I just make most of that up, and then we try it and go on and that sort of thing. And it's so much easier for kids to learn with kind of what you're saying there. Okay, first you're gonna have this intake. Here's the dimensions you can control. Just take everything else as a given, and they can learn a lot about trends and that sort of thing there, and that gets them a lot closer to then doing their own intake. If you take a kid who's never done this stuff before and say, okay, you're on the prototyping team and you're going to make an intake for FRC this year, and by the way, no one on this team has done this stuff before, like, God, the odds of success there are just so low. And that kid's not likely to get to a point where they can just design on their own faster than the kid who, had the stair steps of something that they could copy and reference.